Thank you, Joe. Still, that link was for October 29th. But anyway, everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe, do you want to hit record on yours so we're recording the actual Zoom? I am recording to Vimeo.
All right, very good. Are we ready, folks? Everybody here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. At this time, I'd like to open up the November 19th, 2020 meeting of the Ad Hoc Improved Streets Committee. At this time, we'll take roll call.
Scott Moore,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Pierre Boutros,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Jason Emron,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Michael Fenberg,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Katie Schaefer,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Stuart Sherman,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Janelle Whipple-Boyce.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Okay. With that, the roll call has been taken. And at this time, we'll approve or deal with the minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to receive and review the minutes? If so, if there's any need for clarification, deletion, addition, what have you, please indicate. Seeing none, I believe that I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'd like to move the make the motion to move the minutes as is.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Need for discussion. I thought the minutes, as per usual, were very well done. And with the attachments, hopefully you've read the attachments that were included. And seeing no further need for discussion, we'll take a vote by roll
Pierre
call.
Boutros. Pierre Boutros.
Yes, and just for the record, I think, Jason, you need to recuse yourself from that.
Yeah, yes, I was gonna abstain when she called my name.
Okay.
Michael Fenberg,
Yes.
Scott Moore,
Yes.
Katie Schaefer,
Yes.
Stuart Sherman,
Yes.
Janelle Whipple-Boyce,
Yes.
Jason Emron.
Abstain?
Perfect.
Thank you, Laura. And at this time, we'll move on to item 3, which is a review of input from November 12 meeting and discuss draft plan and consider modifications. At this time, Joe, do I turn it over to you? Joe, you need to unmute.
There we go. All right, we'll get there. So based on the comments at the last meeting, we have compiled kind of the list of items that were brought up that the board the committee can consider this evening for modifications to the final report. Based on some of the comments, we tried to capture those to the extent that there's language that you can review and consider for amending the draft plan. There are 3, I think, fundamental topics that were raised at the last meeting. The first had to do with language in regards to Headley and what that means for the availability for the city to leverage additional funding. The second was in regards to trying to clarify the language with regard to concrete and being a little bit more clear as to that being a more definitive road material than having alternatives that the residents can try to solicit. Last, we had an issue that came up with regard from a couple of residents that addressed certain types of streets that were on the city boundary, whether it be partial or entirely, and how those streets were going to be addressed. So we've prepared some language also for your consideration this evening. And I believe those were the 3 main points that were brought up at the last meeting. So the first one, again, was with regard to property taxes and the Headley impacts on the city's availability to leverage funding and what that means for leveraging additional funding to do projects and the pressure that we have under Headley. So this language that's been prepared under item number 1 on the report tries to explain a little bit more clearly the limitations that the city is under in regards to Headley. So with that, Mark and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I thought the language was very good, Mark, and I understood earlier today that you wrote it. Do we need to add this, just to make sure that our position is clear? It is the general fund that lends this money. We act as a bank. And unless we get money back in, we cannot lend money out. So that if for whatever reason, we had this problem, what do we do? Maybe not with so much with Headley, but with another issue. But do we need to expand? But other than that, I think it's fine. I don't know how you can answer that, but I think it's fine.
Is there more clarity that's needed? I guess. is
No,
the
I
question.
don't think so. I mean, I'm talking to myself here right now on that one. So I think, whoa, I lost everybody. I think we're fine on that.
I think we're
I
good.
was speaking more in the term of another issue that's come up with regard to one of our letters in regard to the 10-year, can we extend the 10-year? And of course, we've discussed that. And that's what I was answering to. So I just got mixed up on the questions. So that's fine. Sorry about that.
Hey, Scott.
We're fine.
Scott
Yes.
Stewart. One of the things I think that this paragraph does do is it makes it very clear that the city is not in the position to advance more funds, or actually, I know there's some residents that have indicated they'd like to see the city actually pay for all the improvements.
Right.
And this makes it very clear that the city doesn't have the capacity to do that.
That's a
So,
good point.
so I think this is a good addition.
Yep.
It's very explanatory from that perspective.
Yep. When you consider the bonding problem and consider this problem, you're kind of boxed in.
Yeah.
There's consensus on the language being adequate to add to the report. I would just ask for a motion to make that amendment to the plan, the final report, so that it can be included.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'll move that we add the proposed language on property taxes and Headley impact into the final report.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Good. Any need for discussion? I apologize for my confusion there for a minute. Seeing none, we can take a vote.
We want to go to the public. We have some public here this
Do we have
evening.
a
if there's
public,
any
do we have a public
on the
discussion?
motion.
I'm sorry. Hearing none, I believe we can now take a vote. Roll call.
Michael Fenberg,
Yes,
Pierre Boutros,
Yes.
Jason Emron,
Yes.
Scott Moore,
Yes.
Eddie Schaefer,
Yes.
Stuart Sherman,
Yes.
Janelle Whipple-Boyce.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The next item was in regard to the language in the report that I guess maybe became a little too vague in terms of the decision of the committee to have kind of a solid recommendation with regards to the use of concrete. So in that regard, there's some language on page 26 that you may want to consider deleting as outlined in the report. And then also on page 69, there was reference to some of the language there needing to be modified as well.
Okay. Any initial discussion, need for clarification? Janelle,
I'm just happy to say that it was me that brought this up last week, and I think that the changes are exactly what I was looking for. So
Okay.
I think it's very well done.
it is. It's fine tuning a delicate issue. And I think it was done with good balance here. That said, seeing no other need by the committee. I'll entertain a motion to approve this language.
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Good, Janelle, thank you. Any need for further discussion? Seeing none from the committee, the public? Hearing none, we can take a roll call vote.
Stuart Sherman,
Yes.
Anna Whippleboyce,
yes,
Pierre Boutros,
Yes.
Jason Etmerin,
Yes.
Michael Fenberg,
Yes.
Scott Moore,
Yes.
Katie Schaefer.
yes.
Motion passes. Back to you, Joe.
Okay, the third item we had for you was in regards to these conditions where you have streets that are adjoining the city's boundary and how to acknowledge that these conditions exist, which I think are going to warrant some additional conversation in the future based on the individuality of these types of circumstances, where some, in fact, would have a street that's split right in the middle of the street, whereas if you're constructing the street, you couldn't construct half of the street. So there would have to be conversations with the adjoining municipality to decide how you wanted to move forward. You also have conditions where the street length is split by jurisdiction, where both drive lanes would be in one jurisdiction on one side of the street, and then both drive lanes could be in another jurisdiction on another section of that street. So that's another more unique type condition. So this language was put together to acknowledge these conditions and address them, that in the future, there would have to be some additional conversation with regard to those types of streets, given the uniqueness that they have in the plan. So if there are any questions with regard to the language, I believe the intent at the last meeting was to try to identify these as issues that would need to be addressed on a case-by-case basis.
Joe, which page of this?
This is
Say that again.
page 2 of the memo with discussion items,
Yes, thank you.
and it's item 3 on that memo. So the proposal would be to add a section to the billing procedure section on page 17 to include this section indicated as unimproved streets with shared jurisdiction.
I mean, I think the reality is up to now, as far as I know, you've had the cooperation of other, jurisdictions when you've had, joint projects.
We have, and I think Saxon being the most recent one that was redone.
Okay.
It seems to me that this information included in here under letter E is really all we can do, I think, in this, as this committee. I mean, we're identifying the locations, we're explaining how we would need to move forward in those situations. I mean, of course, each one of these streets, when and if they come up, will be a more of a challenge than if it's just a street within our own city. But I don't see a better way than what's proposed to to move forward and include this, identify it, and point out that we know about it. But going forward, it'll have to be a joint discussion between us and whichever city we're adjacent to. So
Right.
I don't see a better way to handle it than this.
Very good. Any others?
This is Jason. This is very well written. I understand the issue. It happens all the time in other municipalities, and this is the only way to handle it. So I am in support of everything that's written here in letter E, and I think it should be added. It's pretty clear and well done. So, and I missed all the discussion at the last meeting, and I just read through it again for the second time, and it makes perfect sense to me, missing all the discussion from last week. So
That said, and no further comment, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Support?
any need for further discussion? I thought this was important. I'm glad it was brought up by 2 residents last week. We need to identify this. And I think the language does set a path so that all of the residents can understand this. Because each time this issue does arise in reality, it'll take on its own individual problem-solving process. So there's no one process that's going to work for each situation. That said, any need for further discussion from the public? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Stuart Sherman,
Yes.
Michael Fenberg,
Yes.
Scott Moore,
Yes.
Katie Schiffer,
Yes.
Janelle Whipple-Boyce,
Yes.
Pierre Boutros,
Yes.
Jason Emron.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I think, Scott, to your point, we had one other communication that came in after the agenda was issued.
Right.
If you wanted to raise that issue.
Was this one from Mr. Stark?
I
Yes.
believe that was the name.
It's Mr. Stark.
Mr. Stark is a longtime resident on Chesterfield. And he wrote a letter essentially saying that please do not force people to curb and improve their roads. For many of us, we do not want it. It should only be done if 3/4 of homeowners want it done. It is expensive and currently disrupts the rural atmosphere of some of our neighborhoods. It is sometimes detrimental to the trees. Thank you for listening, and thank you for writing, Robert. Anybody? We have discussed this in the past, early on in our meetings together. It's certainly part of the historical nature and part of the historical section of our report. Any need for further comment?
Is there a need to formally receive and file this letter for the record, or was Scott reading it into the record sufficient to meet that requirement?
I think reading into the record is sufficient.
Okay.
Yes. And if asked about it at the commission level, I'll be happy to answer that question. To go into the more historical nature of my history with this particular issue, going back to the mid-90s, and especially in the Cordon Street area, where this was a major issue, and this was the foremost argument given. And I'll be happy, if the commission so desires, to answer that question. But I believe it should be answered at that time. No need for further action? Then we'll proceed with other comments or letters that were sent. I received 2 letters through Commissioner Valor. He had requested folks to write him, or however communicate with him, and he would be sure to pass it on, and he did. And the first one came from an individual named Ed. I'm looking for the last name. I do not see it, but if we can get his last name, I think we should and will include it in the record. And he writes, hope all is well. He writes to Clinton. Hope all is well with you and your family. If the city would amortize the payback over a longer period, it would be an easier pill to swallow. Appreciate all you do. Keep fighting for us. Thanks. Clinton wrote back and said, thanks, Ed. I will pass along your comment. I believe 10 years is the max by law, and that's what we offer. And in that sense, Commissioner Clinton, Commissioner Ballard was correct. We have an ordinance, I believe, that sets a 10-year maximum. And and this goes back to my original comments. And 10 years, I don't know why it was set, when it was set, but it makes sense in that we do act as a bank. The city acts as a bank. And as we lend money, we need to get money back in. And if we extend that time out, we'll get less money back in to lend out, which means it'll slow down this infrastructure program. As such, 10 years, and as we found out, and I think Commissioner Sherman, you brought this, you pointed this out, and we do have a graph within the report that indicates that for the most part, that the assessment is paid within the first 2 or 3 years. Is that correct, Mark?
That is correct.
Okay.
And, you know, there are other options. Not, I guess not everybody has this option, but, you know, just because we issue the special assessment, we act as the bank, doesn't mean that you have to stay with us. You can find your own financing terms of longer length and pay off the city and, you know, use whatever, you know, loan or other borrowing capabilities that you have. You're not confined to just the city.
That is correct. And should a resident, a family find themselves in a situation where they cannot make any payments or they would not qualify for a loan, there is another avenue with the Birmingham Foundation. And that would be available to certainly any family within our city. And so in other words, the city will do what is necessary. Certainly it's been my experience to make sure that everybody remains safe and able.
Chair, I have a
Yes.
comment. I think this referred to Mr. Gerber, I think, with his comment, if they're not obliged to use the city for financing, but how do you recommend and how do you foresee a resident going to, in what directions, to who, to a mortgage or to a bank to loan them the money? How do you foresee this? How could they leverage or what language they have to use and what directions they have to ask for that money? And you follow what I'm saying? Like, where do you go if you're not going to utilize the city for that loan for 10 years? For that amount to be repaid, where do you go?
Yeah, most people, you know, depending on how much equity you have in your home, can apply for a home equity line of credit. That would be one way to do it.
So, okay, so
There may be other, you know, other avenues that they may have to get, you know, a loan, depending on, you know, they could get a personal loan, they could get, you know, there's other financing that may be available to individuals. That's all I'm saying is that there may be other opportunities to explore. I think people focus on, you know, it's 10 years, I got to pay the city. Well, there are other ways you can refinance your home. There are a lot of other opportunities that are available.
yeah, appreciate it, Mark. That was my question. Is it something we can facilitate to that homeowner that requesting, and we could have some percentage of people that like to go outside and maybe do it through their mortgage? It's cheap, maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's longer, whatever they're looking for. But from the city standpoint, that type of loan, could it be embedded in their equity? Like you said, is it more that can we facilitate that the mortgage company can understand it, or it's more like regular home equity, has nothing to do because it's assessed to your home and the city had fixed the road? You follow what I'm saying? I'm trying to help myself understand, if I was the person to go seek a loan somewhere else, I need it to be easy for me to go to either my mortgage or bank, because this is more of a road that need to be fixed in front of my house, and I got assessed this amount of money. I don't know if I'm trying to to use the right term by using, what do I tell them? Is there something the city can give me to make it easy for me, or not really? It's like you're on your own. That's my question, Lynn. Is there a tool? Is there?
Pierre, I can speak from experience. So when I first moved onto Frank Street and I had taken a mortgage out and bought my house, and then subsequent to that, the assessment was put through for improving Frank Street.
Okay,
And so every time any time after that, that I went to remortgage,
here we go.
I had to pay back that because the mortgage company did not want the city assessment being in front of the mortgage company. I could have gotten a home equity loan and paid it off that way, but you know, unless you're going to remortgage or use a home equity loan, or you borrow against your equity, those would probably be the two major ways that a homeowner might have to finance it.
Thank you, Michael. That helps. It's just clarification and ideas to give people out there to see how they can seek the money. That's pretty much it.
Is there any need to include such information in the packet that we give a neighborhood when we go about that process? I don't see we can act as a financial counselor, but
I think that's the concern, is you don't want to be giving out financial advice.
okay. But I'm sure that's going to be brought up. Either be brought up at the commission level or at another time. I just want to make sure that we have a consensus here. See no further need of comment. I'm going to ask if the public would like to chime in on this issue at all.
Hi, this is John Farnwell. If you could just assign me to captions, please.
Did I hear somebody?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Our captioner just arrived here.
Oh, okay. I believe we have one other letter that came in from Commissioner Baller. And it's Sue, and I'll spell the last name. I hate to mispronounce the last name. It's ELSHOLZ on 1086 Norfolk Street. And she writes, "Would you please forward my comments below to the appropriate people? I live on an unimproved road and frankly would prefer the status quo over cement roadways. While drainage is an issue, it's not unbearable. What drives me crazy, however, is the leaf issue. I have to buy bags and spend my time and energy in Perin or pay someone in the Perin to do what other residents get for free. I find it hard to believe that there is no way to vacuum the leaves from a curbless road." Certainly, we can all emphasize with Sue on this issue, and it's something we've carried for the last 2 years in our discussions. Lauren, would you like to speak to this? I understand last year, if I recall, Beverly Hills, which has curbless roads throughout its village, advertised that they were going to do a leaf pickup. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of these facts. And they started this leaf program. They contracted the work out to a third party, and everybody was excited. I mean, can you imagine? Why wouldn't you be? And so they started to go about this leaf pickup and discovered that it wasn't working out so well. And as a matter of fact, it turned into a major problem. And was discontinued. I don't think they even finished. I may be wrong on that fact. But do you have any other way of addressing this, Lauren?
Sure. Thanks, Scott. I think you're actually accurate with that with regard to the Beverly Hills experience. Joe and I had some conversations, of course, with them and inquiring about our methods and our operations. And we do get this question quite often. It's a lot of it has to do with the equipment. We need curbs for safety factors for any debris, stones, things that would go blowing, blowing into the guys and the equipment. So it could either damage the people, the equipment. And we found that the, excuse me, the curb streets are the only ones that this is successful on, as other cities have found too. But that's one of the things, as the streets get improved and you're gonna have curbs around the city, then we also have to think of the demand, the supply and demand for leaf pickup in our community with our resources and our staffing and things like that. So that's something that we of course contemplate over at DPS. So so that does come up, Scott, definitely, especially this time of year. It's a significant amount of people that have curb streets, however. So it's a great service to have. There aren't many cities that even do that anymore too. So that's another factor. It's nice to be able to spoil the residents that when we can and as often as we can.
Well, with that, I certainly, along with Sue, look forward to a day when we can all be spoiled. I would think that would be a wonderful thing for our city. And she did indicate that she would certainly prefer cement or concrete at any given time. And Sue, I would refer you to our report. And we did spend, Sue's, considerable time on this issue. Not just once, but several times. And weighing all of the balancing aspects of this issue, we did come down and decide that cement was going to be the preferred way to go. It doesn't mean it's the final way to go. It's ultimately up to the city engineer. But you may want to, once the final report is finalized and published, please take time to review it. And if need be, consult with the city commission in regard to any further comment or your concerns. I'm sure they would welcome that. And I want to thank you for writing. It certainly brought back many of our discussions and again, our sensitivity to this issue. Not only the leaf, but certainly the concrete. I was, I believe, the only two that I received from Commissioner Baller, and of course we had Mr. Stark. Did anybody else receive any communications or comment during the past week? Any need for further action tonight on these letters and comments? Seeing none at this time, then I'll open up this meeting to the public for any questions they may have for us. And again, I say to those that want to ask, we welcome anything you have to say. If you have a question we can't answer, well, it's either because we never took it up and we need to go into it, or we just don't have it at hand. And the staff will get back with you with an answer. And if we hadn't taken it up, we will take it up and we'll get back to you at a future time. But this has been a committee that's been long and comprehensive. And it's been a citizen up kind of committee, not an administration down type committee. The staff has been wonderful and certainly been helpful all along the way. But this is our committee. This is the Citizens Committee. And so with that, I'll open it up to the public. Feel free to go to your, I think it's participants, and you'll see a raise your hand type of toggle and you can press that. And if you wish, you can make any comment you would like to make.
I believe they can simply unmute themselves if they wanted to speak as well.
Well, they will certainly do that too. Yeah. I know there's a few, and I'll ask a second time. Okay. Seeing none. Committee comments at this time. Have we talked ourselves out, committee? We certainly have come a long way. We've, I think, really addressed some real tension points in the history of this city and as it relates to roads. We've had to address from our own committee those ancient, I believe, myths of this city, this side of the city versus the other side of the city, and these kind of things. We've had to deal with it all. And I congratulate this committee. As you all know, I've been around for a long, long time. And I expressed to Commissioner Baller when we talked that I had never known a committee that was so talented, so civic-minded, and had the experience as this committee. And for that, it's been certainly a great experience for me. And if I never sit on another committee, I'll say that I went out like Sandy Koufax. You know, I won the World Series, and I got the Cy Young Award. It's time to retire. But maybe I won't. Maybe I won't. But we'll see. Is there any further need for committee comments? Then at this time, and this is going to be hard to almost get through, but at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the ad hoc unapproved streets committee report and recommend its approval to the city commission.
I'll make a
Here's such a
motion.
motion.
I'll
So
make the
moved by
motion.
Mr. Fenberg,
I second.
seconded by the mayor. Need for further discussion at this time?
Does the motion need to include language to say to make the 3 amendments that we talked about today at the beginning of the meeting?
I think they've already been amended. They're already
They're already in there? Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, though. That's belt and suspenders, Jason. I've always liked that.
I can comment, Chair Scott Moore. We want to thank you for your time. And this is part of the motion because this is the end of it. I am very excited personally that we really came a long way and many nights spent, many arguments, but many challenges we faced. As you said, this is historical. And I echo your sentiments and your wonderful words, Scott, that we really, it takes a village to raise a child, they say, and it takes a great committee to really draft something and recommend a historical draft to be hopefully executed soon by city commission. I thank you for your time personally, Scott.
Sure.
And I thank every person on that Zoom and the committee members. I don't know, I feel like I have to thank people. This is me. It's my personality, and I know how great of an effort each person has to give from their time, their family, their social life, their business life. We got a doctor on the screen every Thursday. She's in her clinic just making decisions for the community. This is how dedicated our people are. And like, you can't ask for better, really, like you said. I thank each one of them. Thank the staff. My city manager, Joe Valentine, you are part of this history. So we thank you for all the hard work you've done. Too.
Give it to the staff. They did a wonderful job.
Well, I think of everybody. We've had, staff that's no longer part of us, that were part of this
Yes.
endeavor. And Mark, I don't think we could have done this report without your help. And and Lauren and just everybody. I think of each one of you and what you brought to the table in terms of your own experience and longevity within the city. And it's truly been remarkable. I've been reminded by some of the other commissioners and from others within the public at Kroger's. I stopped wearing my, fake mustache and sunglasses. And so people recognize me now and they come up to me and they said, "What's with this 145-page report?" And I said, well, it is 145 pages, but guess what? It's the biggest infrastructure project in the history of this city. And it's an expensive one. And we've done our best to be stewards of your money and your quality of life and your time in Birmingham. And with that, they go, well, 145 pages and it isn't all that long, is it? I mean, kind of thing. But, and that's exactly what we've done. We've addressed people's quality of life, their time here in Birmingham, and we've acted as stewards as best we can towards their money.
And I would argue their relationship with their neighbors.
And yes, their neighbors. And you, Katie, are one that's experienced that. And as I have and others. But yes, I experienced that back in 1994 and 95. And it was one of the reasons I first ran for city commission. So with that, any further comment from the public before we vote on this motion? Again, I'll ask for public comment. Feel free. If you can't work your computer, just scream out the window. Maybe we'll hear you.
It's just thinking you, Scott. That's all what they're doing.
All righty. Well, with that, I see no further comment. And at this time, we'll take a roll call vote.
Michael Fenberg,
Yes.
Pierre Boutros,
A big yes.
Jason Emron,
Yes.
Scott Moore,
Yes.
Katie Schaefer,
Yes.
Stuart Sherman,
Yes.
Janelle Whipple-Boyce.
Yes.
Motion passes. And thank you, Joe, for all your work.
Thank you,
At
sir.
this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
So
motion to
moved.
adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Second.
I hope there's no need for a comment or clarification.
Congratulations to all of us.
Seeing none, I'll Laura, at this time, I'll foreclose with the roll call vote and I'll declare this meeting as adjourned. Many thanks to all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.